Alright, hello. I post under the name Scorpion Strike on the TTV message board, and I made this little revamp here of the Skull Scorpio Bionicle 2015 set, which the original set was not overly popular because of its lack of articulation, and so it wasn't very poseable at all. It had a cool function in the tail, which I added one to mine as well. But other than that, it's a kind of good play set, but not good for displaying, which is what I do with my Bionicle sets most of the time. So I made this revamp with the goal of not messing with the original proportions of the body and the legs and stuff, but making a better looking tail and adding posability, articulation, to the legs, which you can see I did. And when I posted it on the forum, someone asked if I could show them kind of how I made it. So I figured rather than posting 20 or so different pictures of this thing disassembled in various ways and trying to explain in text what it does, I just make this little video to show exactly how it was put together. So I'll do this in two sections. I've got the tail, which we'll cover in a minute, and then the body itself. And for the body, basically I used a bunch of Metrumatoran arms, which are these things. They're from 2004 originally, Bionicle's first run. And I stuck them in there, you can see, at kind of an odd angle, so that this rod here that they're attached to, it actually comes out. You rotate it 45 degrees, that's kind of the way it sits. Which is why I've got a ball joint at the back here, attaching to a hand to hold it all together, because I can't actually stick a regular plus rod on there, because again, this is angled like that. But towards the front here, if I could take off the head, it is actually all held together, if you can kind of see, by a bunch of these clothes hanger pieces, or at least that's what I like to call them, because of their shape. That's these. And I've got 4 of them stuck in there, and then you can see the first Metrumatoran leg is stuck right in between those. And really the construction of this body is just an exercise in sticking everything on these axles in the right order, because we've got the top one that's rotated, and then the bottom one, which is just a regular 9-length axle, which you can stick an 8 or 10 in there, whatever you'd like. But then the middle here, which you can kind of see if I hold it at the right angle, there's another rod in there, which is actually a rod that is used a lot with minifigures for like staffs and such. And the reason it's in there is to stop these Metrumatoran legs from wobbling all over the place. You can see this, it flexes a bit, but it's pretty sturdy, and those legs don't actually wobble at all. And the reason for that is that I've got my leg right here, and I take these clothes hanger pieces, run this through the top, as I have. Like this, it won't just hold steady. Oh, you can try that. You can see it'll twist all over the place. So what I did is at the back set of that, those clothes hangers, I actually got one of these pegs in there, in the spot that goes right below on the actual model, is right below the funky axle, and then I stick this rod through there. And I can see on the other side that there's actually a groove right there in what would be the elbow of the Metrumatoran arm, and this rod will slide right in there. And then if you attach it on the other side as well, these actually won't wobble at all, which is why this torso, it looks kind of funky, but it actually all holds together very nicely and doesn't wobble at all. But that is pretty much the torso. Other than that, it's all pretty basic, sticking Technic pieces in the right places. So, with that covered, let's put that back together. Let's move on to the tail, which is perhaps the interesting part. The tail actually has a function where actually I've got this red knob at the bottom, and see if I can get this kind of in shot here. If I press it, the whole tail comes forward, and at the end here, these blades, which, see if I can get them into view here, they will actually come together. See there at the end, they're kind of together, whereas they're far apart when the thing is, the tail is back. And the reason for that is that I've got this assembly on the back here, because the spine of the tail, from this ball joint down here to all the way up in here, is basically just a whole bunch of Technic axles, these things, 4 length, stuck on there, in between these connectors, which these connectors are actually from the Skull Scorpio original set. They're the ones that are used to attach the front legs, and this one here is actually used to attach the back leg. So you should already have those if you've got the set. And then I just stuck a ball joint with a through hole on there, on each of those, in order to add that in to make it look a little less bare, and just make it flow with the rest of the set a little bit better, which I think it does. Down the end here, I've got, this is basically a 4-bar linkage construction. So I've got 5 length Technic beams here with plus rods on the ends. I've got 4 of them, they're half width. And those form the base here. And then on the front, you can see here, I've stuck a triple or tripod piece, I usually call them, on there, which with these connectors means that the blades, when they move around, they will slide at that angle and kind of slice together, a kind of cross chop or a V-strike, as I like to call it. And so, like the original set, I then have these beams here that run between 2 of those tiny ball joints and a 4-bar rod that just fit on there fairly nicely. And so what happens is that as the tail goes forward from its standard position, you can see I've got these 2 rubber bands back here, which are attached to this assembly, which is again just a bunch of Technic pieces. That is the back part of the 4-bar linkage. And what happens is that this blue one is actually the rubber band that comes with the Skull Scorpio set. This is one that I just found, and you kind of have to experiment if you make this with which one has the right strength. But what happens is, as the tail slides forward, the beige rubber band, it actually gets stretched out, so it starts pulling stronger. Which means that eventually it starts pulling stronger than this rubber band here, which means this whole assembly here will just slide like that. It'll slide back like that. This is when the tail is striking forward, and then this is when it's resting back. And that means here, this linkage here is activated, which then makes the tail pieces come together like that. And it can kind of clap if you wanted to make it do that. But yeah, so the end result is that when I press this, and this whole beam here just comes sailing forward, is that again this rubber band starts pulling harder until it pulls this whole assembly back, and then that will actually make these pieces come together. And that's more or less just a way that this is constructed here. I can take this CCBS piece off. I mean, that's just again a ball joint on a attachment, and I mean there's no tricks in there or anything. This is just a solid assembly and the base. The blades attach to that angle. We've got these are the top part of the linkage, and then we've got along the back here, we've got the part that actually just slides right by there as the tail strikes forward. So yeah, that is more or less the construction of the revamp I made of Skull Scorpio. And so you attach that back on there. But yeah, I think it looks more cohesive than the original set, because the tail actually looks like it's part of the build, rather than being a kind of cool function that was designed separately and then just tacked on, which is kind of what I think the original set does, where it looks kind of cool on the body, even if it can't pose. And then there's this weird Technic arrangement on the back that works nicely, but doesn't fit at all with the appearance. I think this blends form and function a little bit better than the original set does. But yeah, I hope this video is helpful in kind of explaining how to put this thing together, if you'd like to try building one yourself or improving upon it. But yeah, feel free, and I hope you enjoy.